The signal deep in the endless void of space, the horizon glided silently. It was a sleek exploration vessel, built to travel farther than any human ship before it. For months, the crew had been searching the uncharted regions of the galaxy, looking for signs of life, old relics, or anything to bring back to Earth. But so far, the stars had been silent. Until now. The ship's communications console flickered, and a low beeping sound filled the bridge. Ensign Oliver turned to Captain Elena Carter, his face pale. "Captain, we're receiving a signal," he said, his voice tight with tension. "But it's strange." Captain Carter, a calm and determined leader, leaned forward in her chair. "Strange how, Ensign?" she asked, her piercing green eyes fixed on the console. "It's encrypted," Oliver replied, typing furiously on his keyboard. "The frequency doesn't match any known Earth codes. It's not from us, or at least, not from anything we've logged in our databases." The rest of the bridge crew turned to listen, their usual chatter silenced. Even the ship's eye, a calm and logical voice named Cirrus, spoke up. "Captain, I advise caution. The origin of the signal cannot be determined, and it may pose a risk." But Captain Carter wasn't one to back down from the unknown. "Put it through the speakers," she ordered. The sound crackled and hissed, filled with static, but beneath the noise was a faint human voice. It was distorted, like someone speaking underwater. After a few moments, the words became clear. "Don't come closer. Stay away." A chill ran through the crew. "It's a warning," whispered Dr. Layla Novak, the ship's science officer. She adjusted her glasses and studied the wave patterns on her screen. "The signal is old, very old. But it's still active. How is that possible?" Before anyone could answer, the signal repeated, louder this time. The same message, the same warning. "Don't come closer. Stay away." Captain Carter sat back, her mind racing. Warnings in space weren't uncommon. Many derelict ships and stations left automated messages to keep scavengers away. But this one felt different. The voice sounded desperate, almost pleading. And the fact that it was human, or close to human, was unsettling. "Cirrus," the captain said, her voice steady. "Can you pinpoint the source?" "Triangulating coordinates now," the eye replied. A map of the nearby star systems appeared on the main screen, and a small red dot blinked into existence. "The signal is coming from a location 0.5 light-years from our current position. There is an unidentified structure in orbit around a lifeless planet." "Unidentified structure," Carter repeated. "What kind of structure?" "The scans are limited at this range," Cirrus said, "but it appears to be artificial and constructed with materials consistent with human technology." "Human?" Oliver exclaimed. "Out here? That doesn't make sense. No human missions have ever come this far." Dr. Novak frowned. "Not in our timeline, no," she said cryptically, but she didn't elaborate. Captain Carter stood up, her mind made up. "We're going to investigate," she announced. "Captain, I strongly advise against this course of action," Cirrus interjected. "The warning could indicate a danger to the crew and the vessel." "I understand the risks," Carter said, her tone firm. "But this is what we're here for, to uncover the unknown. Prepare the ship for approach." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but they trusted their captain. The horizon adjusted its course, the engines humming as the ship surged toward the source of the mysterious signal. Hours passed as they closed the distance. The tension on the bridge was palpable. The signal grew stronger, repeating the same haunting message. "Don't come closer. Stay away." It was impossible to ignore, yet Carter pressed on. As they neared the coordinates, the unidentified structure came into view. The main screen displayed a massive derelict station floating in the void. It was dark and silent, its surface covered in strange markings that resembled Earth languages, but were distorted and alien. The station's design was eerily advanced, far beyond anything humanity had built. Dr. Novak stared at the screen, her voice barely a whisper. "This station, It's not just advanced. It's decades, maybe centuries ahead of us. Oliver shuddered. What if it's not human? What if it's something else? Before anyone could respond, the lights on the bridge flickered. The ship's systems began to hum and pulse as if responding to an invisible force. Ceres's voice cut through the noise. Captain, I am detecting a surge of unknown energy emanating from the station. It is attempting to interface with our systems. What the hell does that mean? Carter demanded. It means we've been noticed, Dr. Novak said grimly. The signal changed, the static vanished, replaced by a clear robotic voice. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves or face consequences. The bridge fell silent. Captain Carter clenched her fists, her mind racing for a response. The unknown lay ahead, and there was no turning back now. Ceres, she said finally, her voice steady. Prepare for docking. Let's see who, or what, is waiting for us. The silent station. The horizon glided closer to the massive station, its sleek frame dwarfed by the immense structure. Captain Carter stood at the bridge, staring at the twisted design displayed on the main screen. The station's surface was unlike anything they had seen. Jagged metal panels, glowing seams that pulsed faintly, and strange carvings that looked almost like a language. Almost. Are those symbols supposed to mean something? Asked Oliver, leaning closer to his console. Dr. Novak tapped her screen, enhancing the image. It looks like a mix of human alphabets, Latin, Cyrillic, maybe even Chinese, but none of it makes sense. It's scrambled. It's not just scrambled, Novak added after a pause. It's deliberate, like it's meant to confuse anyone who looks at it. Ceres, the ship's AI, interrupted their conversation. Captain, docking ports are detected on the station. No active power sources are present, but the hull integrity is intact. Atmosphere levels inside appear stable. Captain Carter tightened her grip on the railing. Stable atmosphere in a station this old. It didn't add up. Ceres, keep scanning. I want to know everything about that place before we dock. Understood, the AI replied. However, I must advise, this station's origin and purpose remain unknown. Proceeding may jeopardize crew safety. Carter ignored the warning. She wasn't reckless, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were meant to find the station. The signal, the carvings, it all pointed to something connected to humanity. Something lost or hidden. Prepare the shuttle, she said. We're going in. Minutes later, the small exploration shuttle detached from the horizon and drifted toward the station. The team consisted of Captain Carter, Dr. Novak, Ensign Oliver, and Lieutenant Raj Patel, their security officer. The tension was thick inside the shuttle as they approached the docking bay. The bay itself was enormous, built to accommodate ships far larger than their shuttle. As they entered, floodlights on the station's walls flickered to life, casting long shadows that danced across the metallic floor. It was eerie, like the station was waking up after a long sleep. I thought Ceres said there was no power here, Patel muttered, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. That's what I said, Dr. Novak replied, her voice low. Clearly, this place has other ideas. The shuttle landed with a soft thud. The crew donned their helmets, sealing themselves in case the atmosphere inside wasn't as stable as the readings claimed. The shuttle's ramp lowered with a hiss, revealing the interior of the docking bay. It was cold. Not the freezing chill of deep space, but the kind of cold that clings to forgotten places. The walls were lined with the same strange carvings they'd seen outside, and a faint hum vibrated beneath their boots. Stay sharp, Carter said, leading the way. We don't know what we're walking into. The crew moved cautiously, their boots echoing in the vast, empty space. The hum grew louder as they approached a heavy metal door at the far end of the bay. It looked ancient, its surface scarred and dented, but it slid open smoothly the moment they approached. That's welcoming, Oliver said, trying to lighten the mood. No one laughed. The door opened into a narrow corridor, dimly lit by flickering lights embedded in the walls. The air inside smelled faintly metallic, like old blood. Carter felt the hairs on her neck rise. She wasn't superstitious, but this place had an energy, something unexplainable that pressed on her chest, like a weight. As they moved deeper into the station, the crew began to notice odd details. The walls weren't just carved. They were layered with panels that seemed to shift when they weren't looking. The symbols glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "It's alive," Novak whispered, running her gloved hand over one of the walls. "Not biologically, but this station is more than metal. It's responding to us." "Let's hope it's friendly," Patel muttered, his eyes scanning every shadow. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the central control room. The chamber was massive, its ceiling stretching so high that the lights didn't fully reach. In the center of the room was a single, glowing cryogenic pod. It stood out against the otherwise dark and cold surroundings, bathed in a soft, blue light. The crew froze. "Is that a person in there?" Oliver asked, his voice shaky. Captain Carter stepped closer, her breath fogging up the inside of her helmet. The figure inside the pod was unmistakably human, or close to it. The features were sharper, the body more symmetrical, almost unnaturally so. The person's eyes were closed, their chest rising and falling slowly, as if they were just sleeping. "It's alive," Carter said. "But who are they?" Dr. Novak stepped up, scanning the pod with her handheld device. "Human DNA," she confirmed, her voice filled with disbelief. "But there are anomalies. This isn't exactly like us." Before anyone could process her words, the pod emitted a low hiss. The glass cover began to slide open on its own, releasing a cloud of freezing mist. The figure inside stirred, their eyes fluttering open. The person, woman, they realized, sat up slowly. Her movements were deliberate, almost mechanical. She looked at them with piercing silver eyes and tilted her head, studying them like one might study an insect under a magnifying glass. "Who are you?" Carter asked, her voice firm but calm. The woman didn't answer at first. Then she spoke, her voice smooth but laced with something unearthly. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "They'll come now. And they won't stop." "Who's they?" Carter demanded. The woman's gaze hardened. "The ones who made this place, and the ones who destroyed it." Before anyone could react, the walls of the chamber lit up with symbols that glowed bright red. The hum beneath their feet turned into a deafening roar. Alarms blared, and a voice, deep, distorted, and inhuman, echoed through the station. "Unauthorized presence detected. Defense systems engaged." The woman in the pod stood, her movements graceful yet alien. "You should have listened to the warning," she said. "Now it's too late." The stranger. The alarms echoed through the station like a beast awakening from its slumber. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsated with a blood-red hue, casting eerie shadows across the crew. Captain Carter instinctively stepped back, gripping her sidearm tightly. The mysterious woman from the pod, however, seemed completely unfazed. She stood tall, her silver eyes scanning the panicked crew with an almost predatory calm. "We don't have much time," she said, her voice cold and precise. "They're already coming." "Who's coming?" Carter snapped, her voice cutting through the noise. "And who the hell are you?" The woman turned to her, her gaze unblinking. "I am Commander Arianova of the Terran Fleet, Earth Prime Division. And if we don't leave this station right now, we're all going to die." Her words hung in the air for a moment, heavy with the weight of something Carter couldn't yet grasp. "Earth Prime," Novak repeated, her voice trembling. "That's impossible. There's no Earth Prime. There's only one Earth. Ours." Aria's lips twitched into the faintest shadow of a smile. "Is that what they told you?" She took a step forward, her movements unnaturally smooth, like a predator stalking prey. "Your Earth is just one of many. My Earth, Earth Prime, is the origin, the first, And everything you know, everything you think you are, comes from us. Carter's head spun. This had to be some kind of trick, some elaborate ploy. But the way Arya spoke, with such conviction, made it hard to dismiss her. "Prove it," she demanded. Arya raised a brow, then turned toward the central console. Her fingers moved over the controls with practiced precision, and the screen flickered to life, displaying an image of Earth. But it wasn't their Earth. The continents were the same, but the cities glittered with massive, advanced structures, and enormous ships hovered in the skies. It was a vision of a future humanity could only dream of. "This is Earth Prime," Arya said, "the birthplace of humanity, and the source of all the others." The crew stared in stunned silence, but the moment was shattered by a loud metallic screech reverberating through the station. The floor beneath them trembled, and the symbols on the walls shifted, forming strange, incomprehensible patterns. "What's happening?" Oliver shouted, his voice cracking. "They found us," Arya said grimly. "The ones who destroyed this station, the ones who shouldn't exist. If you value your lives, follow me." She turned and strode toward the chamber's exit, not waiting to see if they'd follow. Carter hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to stay in control, but the growing vibrations underfoot left her little choice. "Let's move," she barked, and the crew scrambled after Arya. The corridors of the station were no longer silent. The hum had become a deafening roar, and the lights flickered erratically, casting the team in a strobe-like glow. Strange mechanical noises echoed from deep within the structure, like grinding metal and distorted voices speaking in an alien language. "What exactly are we running from?" Patel growled, his rifle at the ready. Arya glanced back at him, her expression cold. "They're remnants of a failed experiment. My Earth's attempt to create something greater than ourselves. We called them the Apex. Now they're nothing more than hunters, and we're their prey." "Apex?" Novik gasped. "What kind of experiment?" Arya didn't answer, instead leading them through a series of twisting corridors. The walls began to change, the carvings shifting into fluid, glowing patterns that seemed to respond to their movement. The air grew heavier, charged with static energy. Suddenly, the group skidded to a halt. Ahead of them, a strange figure emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its body was sleek and metallic, its limbs elongated and unnaturally jointed. Its head was featureless, save for a single glowing red eye in the center. "What the hell is that?" Oliver whispered, his hands trembling on his weapon. "One of them," Arya said simply. She stepped forward, her silver eyes narrowing. "Stay behind me." The Apex construct tilted its head, emitting a low, guttural sound that made the air vibrate. Then, without warning, it lunged, moving with terrifying speed. Before anyone could react, Arya raised her arm, and a blade of pure energy erupted from a device on her wrist. With a single, fluid motion, she sliced through the construct, and it collapsed in a shower of sparks. The crew stared in stunned silence as Arya deactivated her blade and turned back to them. "That was just a scout. The others won't be so easy." "Why are they after us?" Carter demanded, her voice sharp. "They're not after you," Arya replied. "They're after me. I'm the last of my team, and they won't stop until they've erased every trace of Earth Prime from existence." Carter's stomach tightened. She didn't trust this woman, this supposed commander from an alternate Earth, but it was clear she knew how to survive. "Then why did you bring us here?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "I didn't," Arya said. "You found me. And now, like it or not, you're involved." Another metallic screech echoed through the station, closer this time. Arya's expression hardened. "If you want to survive, you'll stop asking questions and start running." The crew exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed. As they followed Arya deeper into the station, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just stepped into something far bigger than they could comprehend. And the worst part, she wasn't sure they'd make it out alive. Earth Prime. The station seemed alive now, its walls pulsating, symbols flickering like warning lights. The corridors twisted and branched in ways that didn't match the layout their scans had shown. The crew's breaths were shallow, their nerves frayed, as Area led them deeper into the labyrinthine structure. Every step felt like a march toward the unknown. "Where exactly are we going?" Captain Carter demanded, her voice firm despite the chaos around them. "The control core," Area replied without looking back. "If we're going to stop them, we need to cut their connection to the station. It's the only way we'll have a chance." "Stop who?" Novik pressed, clutching her scanner like it was a lifeline. "The Apex. How did they even get here?" Area slowed and turned, her silver eyes piercing. "This station was once a listening post," she explained, her voice tight. "A forward base for Earth Prime. We used it to monitor dimensional rifts, portals that form between parallel timelines. The Apex, they came through one of those rifts. They weren't meant to exist. My Earth created them, but they became something else." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Parallel timelines. Dimensional rifts. It sounded like something out of a conspiracy theory, but standing in this impossible station, facing down alien constructs, it was hard to deny. "And now they're here," Carter said, crossing her arms. "Why? What do they want?" "They want what they always want," Area said coldly. "To consume. To evolve. They've already destroyed countless timelines, assimilating everything in their path. Your Earth is next." Her words sent a chill through the group. Carter's mind raced. She had always thought of humanity as alone in the universe, but this was something far bigger than she'd ever imagined. The group pressed on, the hum beneath their feet growing louder. The air felt heavier, crackling with unseen energy. As they neared the station's core, the corridors widened, the walls lined with strange, glowing panels that seemed to watch them. "This doesn't feel right," Patel muttered, his rifle raised. "It's too quiet." "It won't be for long," Area said. She stopped abruptly, holding up a hand. "We're here." Before them was a massive circular chamber, the ceiling lost in darkness. At the center of the room stood a colossal structure, a towering column of shifting metal and light, pulsing like a heartbeat. The control core. But it wasn't unguarded. Scattered around the room were more Apex constructs. They were taller and bulkier than the one they had faced earlier, their limbs bristling with blades and energy weapons, their single, glowing eyes turned toward the crew as they stepped inside. "Get behind cover," Carter shouted, her voice cutting through the rising tension. The crew scrambled as the constructs emitted a collective high-pitched screech that vibrated the very walls. Then they charged. Area was already moving. Her energy blade ignited in a flash of blue, and she met the first construct head-on, her movements fluid and precise. Sparks flew as her blade clashed with the construct's weapons, and she dismantled it in a flurry of strikes. But there were too many of them. Patil opened fire, his plasma rounds hitting one of the constructs square in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall, its red eye glowing brighter as it turned its focus on him. "These things don't go down easy," he shouted, firing again. "Keep moving," Carter ordered, firing her sidearm at another construct. The crew ducked and weaved between bursts of energy fire, the sound of the battle deafening in the enclosed space. Amid the chaos, Novik crouched behind a console, her hands trembling as she tried to access the core's controls. "I can't get through the encryption," she cried. "This isn't human tech. It's something else entirely." Area vaulted over a fallen construct, landing beside her. "It's not meant for your hands," she said sharply. She placed her palm on the console, and the symbols on the screen shifted, rearranging themselves. The core began to glow brighter, and the Apex constructs faltered, their movements slowing. "What are you doing?" Carter demanded, taking cover near them. "Severing their link to the station," Area replied, her voice strained. The apex can't function without a hive mind. This will disrupt their connection, temporarily. Temporarily, Novik repeated, her voice rising. Arya didn't answer. The chamber shook violently as the core emitted a burst of energy, sending shockwaves through the room. The constructs froze mid-motion, their glowing eyes dimming as they collapsed to the ground. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, no one spoke. The crew stood amidst the wreckage, catching their breath. Arya, however, didn't waste time. She turned back to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. "What are you doing now?" Carter asked, stepping closer. "Preparing to destroy the station," Arya said bluntly. "It's the only way to stop the apex from using it to cross into your timeline." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Destroy it? We're still on it. We'll have enough time to get back to your ship," Arya said, her tone cold. "If you want to save your Earth, this has to happen." Carter's instincts screamed at her to stop Arya, but she hesitated. Everything Arya had said so far had been impossible, but it had also been true. The apex, the rifts, Earth Prime, it was all real. And if this station was the only thing holding them back. Before she could decide, Novik gasped. "Captain, I'm picking up a new energy signature. Massive. It's coming from outside the station." The main screen in the chamber flickered to life, showing the void beyond the station. A new ship had arrived, a monstrous vessel, sleek and alien, bristling with weapons. Its hull bore the same glowing symbols as the apex constructs. Arya's face darkened. "They're here." The room began to quake as the alien ship's weapons powered up. The crew could feel the vibrations in their bones, the air thick with the hum of imminent destruction. "We're out of time," Arya said, her voice hard. "You need to decide. Help me destroy this place, or try to run. But if you run, you'll be leading them straight to your Earth." Carter stared at the screen, her heart pounding. This was bigger than she'd ever imagined, bigger than anything they'd prepared for. And now, she had to choose. The others arrive. The station trembled as if alive, its walls resonating with the hum of the massive alien ship now looming outside. On the main screen, the monstrous vessel's glowing symbols flickered in eerie patterns. It was impossible to tell if they were a language, a warning, or both. The crew stood frozen, caught between disbelief and fear. Captain Carter broke the silence. "Saris, can you scan that ship?" From the horizon, the AI's voice crackled over their comms. "Scanning. The vessel's design is unlike anything in known records. However, its power output is staggering. Captain, I advise immediate evacuation." The others arrive. The station trembled as if alive, its walls resonating with the hum of the massive alien ship now looming outside. On the main screen, the monstrous vessel's glowing symbols flickered in eerie patterns. It was impossible to tell if they were a language, a warning, or both. The crew stood frozen, caught between disbelief and fear. Captain Carter broke the silence. "Saris, can you scan that ship?" From the horizon, the AI's voice crackled over their comms. "Scanning. The vessel's design is unlike anything in known records. However, its power output is staggering. Captain, I advise immediate evacuation." Arya Nova, standing at the console, smirked faintly. "Evacuation won't save you. They'll hunt you down, follow you to your Earth, and consume everything in their path." Carter's jaw tightened. "Then what's the plan? You've been holding out on us since we got here. Either you tell us everything, or we leave you here." Arya turned to her silver eyes gleaming with cold intensity. "That ship belongs to the Apex Hive. They're not just here for me. They've been watching your Earth for years, waiting for a chance to breach your dimension. This station was the gateway they needed, but they've adapted. If you leave now, your Earth will be next." "You're saying this station isn't their only target?" Dr. Novik asked, her voice trembling. Arya nodded. "Destroying the station is a start, but it won't stop them. To truly stop the Apex, we need to take the fight to their source." "And where's that?" Patel demanded, his weapon trained on the quaking walls as if the station itself might attack. Arya hesitated, then pointed to the main screen. That ship. It's not just a warship. It's a mobile gateway. If we destroy it, we sever their ability to invade your timeline. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Destroying a ship of that size with their limited resources seemed impossible. Yet the alternative, a full-scale invasion of Earth, was unthinkable. Before anyone could argue further, the ship outside began to act. Long, jagged beams of energy lanced out, striking the station's exterior. The walls groaned, and panels began to spark, showering the crew with debris. "Captain," Saris's voice crackled urgently. "The station's hull is failing. I recommend immediate return to the horizon." Carter's instincts screamed at her to retreat, but Arya's voice cut through the chaos. "If you leave now, they'll follow you. You'll lead them straight to your people." "What's the alternative?" Carter shot back. "Stand here and die." Arya strode to the console, her fingers flying across its surface. Symbols shifted and rearranged as the core pulsed brighter. "This station is equipped with weapons far beyond your understanding. If we can activate them, we can take down that ship." Novak shook her head. "The station's systems are ancient. Half of them aren't even functioning." Arya's smirk returned. "Not for you. But I have the codes." She turned to Carter, her expression serious. "Your call, Captain. Fight here or die running." Carter's mind raced. Every instinct told her to retreat, to get her crew to safety. But she couldn't ignore the truth in Arya's words. If the apex reached Earth, there would be no safety. Not for them. Not for anyone. "Fine," she said finally. "We fight." Arya worked quickly, bypassing layers of encryption with commands only she seemed to understand. The station responded sluggishly at first, but then the hum beneath their feet shifted. The air vibrated with new energy as ancient weapon systems came online. Massive panels on the station's exterior unfolded, revealing long, sleek cannons glowing with blue light. On the main screen, the alien ship paused its attack as if it sensed the change. "They're recalibrating," Arya said. "They didn't expect the station to fight back. We have one shot to disable their core." "What do you need us to do?" Carter asked. Arya pointed to Novak. "You'll assist me in targeting their weak points. Patel, Oliver, hold this chamber. If the Apex send boarding parties, you stop them." "And me?" Carter asked. Arya's gaze was unreadable. "You make the hard choices. If this doesn't work, you'll need to evacuate and destroy the station manually." The captain nodded, her stomach knotting with tension. "Understood." The station's weapons fired, sending brilliant beams of energy toward the alien ship. The high vessel responded instantly, unleashing a barrage of its own. The screen lit up with flashes of light as the two forces clashed. The vibrations underfoot grew more violent, and sections of the station began to buckle. "They're targeting the core," Novak shouted, her hands flying over the console. "If they hit it, we're done." Arya gritted her teeth. "Not if I hit theirs first." She locked onto a glowing node on the high ship's hull. Firing. A lance of blue energy erupted from the station, striking the node dead center. The high ship shuddered, its glowing symbols flickering erratically. "Direct hit," Saris reported. "Their energy output is dropping." Carter felt a flicker of hope, but it was short-lived. The station shook violently as a beam of red energy tore through its hull, breaching the chamber's far wall. Sparks and debris rained down, and a cold rush of air signaled a loss of pressure. "Captain," Patel shouted, "we've got movement, incoming constructs." Carter turned to see Apex constructs pouring through the breach. Their metallic forms glinted in the flickering light as they advanced, weapons raised. "Hold them off," she yelled, drawing her sidearm. Patel and Oliver opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the room as the constructs charged. Amid the chaos, Arya's voice remained calm. "The high ship is destabilizing, but it's not enough. We need one more hit. The station can't take another hit, Novak cried, glancing nervously at the structural readouts. Carter gritted her teeth. Then we don't miss. Arya adjusted the targeting systems, her hand steady despite the chaos around her. This is it, she said, locking onto the Hive ship's core. Firing in 3, 2. Before she could finish, one of the constructs lunged at her, its blade aimed for her chest. Carter didn't hesitate. She fired, the plasma bolt striking the construct square in the head. It collapsed in a shower of sparks, but the delay had cost them precious seconds. The Hive ship's weapons powered up again, and the station groaned as another red beam struck it. Alarms blared, and the main screen flickered, showing the Hive ship's glowing symbols brighter than ever. They're charging for a final attack, Novak yelled. Arya's eyes blazed with determination. Not if we hit them first. She slammed her hand down on the console, and the station's weapons fired in unison, a blinding blue beam that pierced the Hive ship's core. The alien vessel shuddered violently, its glowing symbols fading to black. Then, in a silent explosion, it disintegrated, leaving nothing but debris. The station fell eerily silent, save for the distant sound of creaking metal. It's over, Arya said, exhaling for the first time. But Carter wasn't so sure. The cost had been high, and she knew this was only the beginning. The betrayal. The Hive ship's destruction lit up the void, its shattered remains scattering into the emptiness of space. For a moment, silence returned to the station, broken only by the soft hum of its failing systems. The crew of the Horizon stood in the control core, their faces a mix of exhaustion and grim triumph. But Captain Carter couldn't shake the feeling that their victory had come too easily. Arya Nova deactivated the console, the blue light fading from the walls. She turned to the group, her silver eyes colder than before. It's done, she said, her voice clipped. The Hive ship is gone, and the gateway is sealed. For now. For now. Carter stepped closer, her instincts flaring. What aren't you telling us, Arya? Arya's gaze didn't waver. I told you the truth. Destroying that ship prevents the Apex from invading your timeline. But it's temporary. They'll adapt, as they always do. Novak frowned. So we risked everything for a band-aid solution. It's more than that, Arya replied. This victory buys you time. Time to prepare, to build your defenses. Time to ensure your Earth doesn't end up like so many others. Carter's eyes narrowed. And what about your Earth, Arya? What happened to Earth Prime? Arya's face hardened, but she didn't answer. Instead, she turned back to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. The station groaned, its systems faltering as she accessed deeper levels of its core. What are you doing? Novak demanded, stepping forward. Arya didn't look up. This station contains data, records of every Apex incursion, every timeline they've destroyed. If I can extract it, I can use it to find their origin point. That's where we strike next. And we're just supposed to trust you, Patel growled, his weapon still in hand. You've been leading us into danger since the moment we found you. Carter held up a hand, silencing him. Arya, she said evenly, what aren't you telling us? The air in the room grew heavier as Arya finally stopped typing. She straightened, turning to face them with a cold, calculating expression. You wouldn't understand, she said quietly. Your Earth is primitive. You still see things in black and white, good and evil. But the truth is messy. What truth? Carter pressed, her voice sharp. Arya hesitated, then sighed. The Apex didn't just destroy Earth Prime. They were born from it. We created them, genetically engineered soldiers, designed to be the next stage of human evolution. But they evolved beyond us. They saw our imperfections, our chaos, and decided we weren't worth saving. Novak's breath caught. You created them. And now they're wiping out entire timelines. Arya's expression didn't change. It wasn't my choice. The leaders of Earth Prime believed they were building a utopia. Instead, they built a nightmare. Before anyone could respond, the station shook violently, throwing them off balance. Alarms blared, and Ceres's voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy spike. The station's core is destabilizing." Aria cursed under her breath and returned to the console. The Hive ship's final attack damaged the core. If it goes critical, it'll take this entire sector with it. Carter's heart pounded. "Can you stop it?" "I can stabilize it," Aria replied, her fingers racing over the controls. "But it'll take time." As she worked, Novak glanced at the screens, her brow furrowing. "Wait," she said, her voice shaky. "These readings, they're not just the core's energy output. Aria, what are you doing?" Aria didn't answer. "Aria," Carter barked, striding to the console. "What is she talking about?" Novak pointed to the screen, her face pale. "She's not stabilizing the core. She's downloading the Apex data directly into her neural implant." Patel raised his weapon. "What the hell is she planning?" Aria turned slowly, her silver eyes gleaming. "This data is the key to defeating the Apex. I need it to finish what Earth Prime started." "At what cost?" Carter snapped. "You're risking all our lives for a gamble." "It's not a gamble," Aria said coldly. "It's a calculated risk, and it's one I'm willing to take." Before Carter could respond, the floor beneath them cracked, and a blinding light shot up from the core. The room shook violently, and the console sparked, throwing Aria back. She hit the ground hard but scrambled to her feet, her movements unsteady. "What's happening?" Oliver shouted over the noise. "The core is destabilizing faster than I expected," Aria admitted, her voice tight. "I need more time." "You're out of time," Carter said, leveling her weapon at Aria. "Step away from the console." Aria's silver eyes locked onto hers. "If you stop me, you're dooming your Earth. The Apex will adapt, and your people will be next." "And if we let you finish?" Carter demanded. Aria's expression softened, just for a moment. "Then you'll have a chance. A slim one, but it's better than nothing." The room shook again, harder this time. Sparks flew from the walls, and a section of the ceiling collapsed, narrowly missing Novak. "Captain, we have to go," she yelled. Carter hesitated, her weapon still trained on Aria. She could feel the weight of her crew's eyes on her, the unspoken question in their faces. Could they trust this stranger, or was she leading them to ruin? "Make the call, Captain," Aria said softly. "Are you willing to bet your Earth on the hope that the Apex won't find you?" The alarm screamed, the core's light growing blinding. Carter's heart pounded as she made her decision. The final choice. The room was chaos incarnate. The station trembled as the core's energy spiraled out of control, sending waves of heat and light through the chamber. Aria Nova stood firm, her silver eyes locked on Captain Carter. The rest of the crew looked to their captain, desperate for a decision. Carter's hand trembled as she held her weapon trained on Aria. The weight of her choice bore down on her, threatening to crush her resolve. If she let Aria finish, it could save Earth, or doom it. If she stopped her, the Apex would remain a threat, looming over them like a shadow. "Captain," Novak shouted over the roar. "The core's destabilization is accelerating. If we don't leave now, we won't make it." Aria cut in sharply, her voice rising above the noise. "The Apex will find you. They'll consume everything, and your people will die not knowing what they were up against." Carter clenched her jaw. "And what happens if we trust you? What's your plan?" Aria straightened, the faintest flicker of vulnerability flashing across her face. "If I can absorb the data, I'll know the Apex's origin, where they came from, how to stop them for good. But there's a cost." "What cost?" Patil growled, his rifle shifting toward her. Aria hesitated, her voice low. "The data will merge with my neural network. I'll change. I won't be entirely human anymore." Carter's heart sank. "And if we stop you?" "Then you survived for now," Aria said evenly. But Earth won't last. You'll run, you'll hide, but they'll find you. The station jolted violently, the hum of the core now a deafening roar. A fissure opened in the floor, spewing blinding light. Time was running out. "Captain, we have to go," Novak yelled again, desperation in her voice. Carter lowered her weapon slightly, her mind racing. She thought of Earth, of the billions of lives hanging in the balance. She thought of her crew, her responsibility to protect them. And then she thought of Aria, the strange, impossible woman who claimed to be from another Earth. Could she trust her? "Fine," Carter said, her voice steady. "Do it." "Captain," Patel protested, but she silenced him with a sharp glare. "That's an order," Carter snapped. "Get to the shuttle. Now." Patel hesitated, but Carter's unwavering expression left no room for argument. With a reluctant nod, he turned and motioned for the others to follow. Novak and Oliver cast uneasy glances at Aria before retreating with Patel. Carter lingered for a moment, meeting Aria's gaze. "You'd better be right," Carter said. "I always am," Aria replied, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. "Now go." As the crew raced back to the shuttle, Carter glanced over her shoulder one last time. Aria stood alone at the console, bathed in the searing light of the core. Her fingers moved rapidly over the controls, her face set in steely determination. Carter's calm crackled as Cirrus's voice broke through. "Captain, the station is entering critical failure. If you don't evacuate immediately, you will not survive." "I'm on my way," Carter replied, her voice tight. The journey back to the shuttle felt like an eternity. The station groaned and buckled around them, sections of the corridors collapsing as the core's energy rippled outward. The crew boarded the shuttle just as a massive explosion rocked the docking bay. "Punch it, Oliver," Carter shouted, strapping into her seat. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and they launched out of the station, narrowly avoiding the collapsing structure. From the viewport, they could see the station glowing brighter and brighter, like a dying star. Back on the bridge of the horizon, the crew watched in tense silence as the station imploded, its massive form collapsing in on itself. A shockwave rippled outward, buffeting their ship. For a moment, the screen was filled with light, and then it was gone. The station, the apex constructs, and Area Nova had vanished into the void. Carter leaned back in her chair, her hands trembling slightly. She had made her choice, but doubt gnawed at her. Had she condemned Aria? Had she doomed Earth? "Captain," Cirrus said, breaking the silence, "I'm detecting a faint signal." "What kind of signal?" Carter asked, sitting up. "It's coming from the station's last known coordinates," Cirrus replied. "It matches the frequency of the apex warning we received earlier. But this time, it's different." "Put it through," Carter ordered. The bridge filled with a distorted robotic voice. But instead of a warning, it was a message. "The source is found. The hunt begins." Carter's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" Novak shook her head, her face pale. I think Aria succeeded." Carter stared at the screen, her heart pounding. If Aria had found the apex's origin, it meant the fight was far from over. But for the first time, they had a chance. A slim one, but a chance nonetheless. "Set a course for Earth," Carter said finally. "We have work to do." Far from the horizon, in the void where the station had once been, something stirred. A faint, silvery light shimmered in the darkness, and a figure emerged from the wreckage. Area Nova's body was different now, her silver eyes glowing brighter, her movements more fluid. She looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing them. The apex data coursed through her mind, a torrent of information and voices. She felt stronger, faster, but less human. And in the back of her mind, she heard them. The apex. Their hive mind buzzed with activity, their voices whispering to her. She smiled faintly, her voice cold and resolute. "The hunt begins."